Welcome back to another episode of the Frustrated CEO podcast. My name is Patrick Lyons, and I'm here with my colleagues, friends, and co-hosts, Patsy Feeman and Leb Tannenbaum. Now, we're going to launch right into part 2 of our conversation with Ben Pring. There's a lot to cover, and if you didn't already listen to part 1, make sure you go back and either do that now and then come back to this episode, or right after this one, go back and listen to part 1, because so much of what Ben has to say is relevant to business leaders just like you. And like all episodes, make sure you tune in at the very end of this episode and you'll hear this episode's Let's Get Practical, key tips from Ben and my team on specific things that you can implement in your business to make inroads. So we hope you enjoyed part 2 of our conversation with decorated futurist, author, and speaker, Ben Pring.
So if you were to, since our audience is CEOs and senior leaders, what would be some skills, some developments that a CEO, given this really expansive nature we're talking about, because the world has expanded and shifted.
Yeah.
From a CEO, what would you suggest for CEOs to be paying attention to in terms of their people and their workforce?
I think there are two areas, Patsy, where it strikes me this is very commercially relevant. And then underpinning that, there's a series of actions and steps that I think leadership are going to be taking. The two most obvious areas where this shows up is in customer service and in sales. And obviously, again, there's a big push within customer service to deploy bots, to deploy in a sort of triage model for customer service calls to try and automate the front end, level 1 of that away into more and more sophisticated software-based bots. And I'm not against that. And obviously, they're getting more and more sophisticated, and we're going to see digital avatars, digital humans show up soon, and over a kind of Zoom call or a StreamYard call like this, the quality of them will be sufficiently good that you probably won't be able to distinguish a real human from a machine, a software-based human. So that's going to happen more and more, I think. But customer service in the context of phoning into your bank, your insurance company, your whatever, and speaking to somebody, not after an elongated triage decision tree, but immediately, who has all the information about you on their screen, can figure out quickly who you are, not have to ask you repeat the same question 10 times, hand you off to somebody else. Oh, I've got to put you through to this person. That experience, which is still, I think, for most people in the Western world, again, suboptimal and frustrating and ugly. I think investing in that, and again, the human interface layer of that, powered by the technology, I think there's tremendous potential for that, tremendous opportunity for that. I think to imagine that, when you call into your bank or your insurance company, it's as good today as it's going to get. That to me is implausible. So customer service, both online, in the real world, again, thinking about that kind of that pharmacy versus the Apple store, thinking about it, I call it the Tokyo hotel model. If you go to a hotel in Tokyo, there's half a dozen people welcoming you, bowing to you before you get to the front desk. You go into a hotel in New York, again, you can't find it, but nobody's there. That to me is the manifestation, what I call this, the inefficiency of efficiency. Hotels have taken people out of the experience because it's in the short term efficient. Now they're beginning to see the inefficiency of their decision because it's an ugly experience. And especially if you're charging $500 a night now, you want a good human experience. So in the online world, the physical world, I think that experience layer, the human interface, customer service, call it what you will, I think that's a big area of it to invest in. The other aspect of it is sales. Because again, I think one of the fundamental things that technology won't really disintermediate, got there in the end, in our lifetime, and by that I mean even, my son who's 22 in his lifetime, is the skill of and the competitive nature of the sales process. I've long said, in corporate Western world, the salesperson is king or queen. There's just no two ways around that. If you can sell, if you can beat your quota, your target, if you can hit this out of the park, the world is your lobster. And that human ability to sell, Shopify, Amazon notwithstanding, is going to continue to be a huge differentiator, and particularly in more complex, sophisticated environments, selling a big, piece of software, $10 million, $100 million Accenture-style consulting engagement. No software is going to do that anytime soon. The human ability to sell continues to be one of the most important things in business, I think, for the foreseeable future. And again, within that, you can use tools, Salesforce, all the other tools, blah, blah, blah. But it's really, at the end of the day, and again, your audience will hopefully, silently be agreeing with me here. When you're making a bet on vendor A over vendor B, and you're going to spend $10 million or $50 million or $1 million or whatever it is, you're making a bet that you're responsible for as the buyer, caveat emptor, on the people that you're buying from. And those people and the chemistry that happens between people is all about, though, going back to what we were talking about earlier on, those human skills. Is the person friendly? Is the person nice? Is the person reliable? Does the person do what they say? Does the person show up on time? Does the person look you in the eye? All the basics, Dale Carnegie kind of stuff, which again has all, I think, withered and degraded in my lifetime. And the social aspect of that has degraded. Again, the inefficiency of efficiency is, you can't go for that 3-martini lunch. But big deals are done in those social environments, and re-emphasizing those, I think, is smart again. That's, again, you have to be somewhat, progressive and far-sighted to think that way. But again, I think if you don't think that way, you're sort of beginning to, continually just painting yourself into a corner of efficiency, short-term efficiency with long-term inefficient consequences. So customer service in its various different manifestations is a human experience. Sales, even, just going to the pharmacy downtown or buying $100 million consulting engagement, is a human experience. And again, they would be, if I'm a senior leader in my organization, they are, to me, the big critical differentiators. And I would be placing my bets there rather than thinking, we've got a more efficient, just-in-time SAP supply chain manufacturing system. Those things are important, but at the end of the day, people don't buy because one company's got a better, supply chain management system than the other company. They just don't. They are obviously important elements, but the ultimate reason you buy anything, big, small, software, hardware, anything, is because of the experience and the human relationships, the trust that you place in other human beings.
Ben, so here's what, now my mind is racing, because for years, you would outsource your customer service and your, a lot of times you could outsource your sales as well. You'd bring all the technology in-house and you would outsource some of those other pieces. Now that what you're suggesting almost sounds like, not that you can't outsource it, but if there's a greater emphasis on that, is there a shift? This may seem, I may be completely off the mark and it may seem blasphemous, but is there a shift away from hiring the high-tech in-house person and now a shift more towards hiring high relational, people who can deliver that great customer experience. Are you seeing that shift, or am I misreading that?
No. I think that's a really important discussion to have. I think what we're seeing is that, again, in my working life, the debate about, some people will be familiar with this language, some perhaps not, but the debate was really framed around the words core versus context. And you outsource context and you keep core internal. That was the conventional wisdom. And technology in the mid-90s and then through to about the mid-teens, technology was seen as context rather than core, and people outsourced that. And that included BPO, customer service, the sort of things you just started talking about. Then in about the mid-teens, slightly earlier in the financial services space, the big banks realized that software is eating the world. We can't outsource our critical differentiating software and technology. We need to understand that ourselves. Otherwise, we're going to be held hostage by our technology service providers. And that started in financial services. It's spread into other areas as well. But I think what that was the lead indicator of was a reassessment of this core versus context issue. What is really differentiating our business? What is our competitive differentiation? And what are the things that we should perhaps leverage third parties for? Because no matter how well we do them, that isn't how our customer, our prospect is going to say, oh, they're better than they are. And I do think that any business that has over-indexed on outsourcing to the lowest cost provider customer service realizes that is a strategic cul-de-sac that they've gone up. Again, that's the inefficiency of efficiency that they're reaping now. And I think there's a sea change in consideration of that issue. Without being rude or disparaging to anybody who's really outsourced sales, show me a very successful company that's done that, and I'd be surprised if I could find it. Maybe you know one, Patrick, and I don't. But
I think you see more of in the gig world, right? You see more people starting their own. That being a white label sales team for you, and an outsourced sales team.
That's not something. My recommendation would not to be to do that, because again, I think the ultimate skill, the ultimate differentiation is your ability to sell. If you're a CEO, a founder of a business, to get from 0 to 1, to get any traction, you've got to be able to sell this. You've got to be able to sit in front of investors, VCs, big or small. You've got to go to sound your road and be able to sell your idea. And if you can't do that, you're just not going to get anywhere. And if you imagine as a CEO or as a tech founder, you're a hardcore coder, but you're not very good, you don't have very good interpersonal skills, you're a bit of a nerdy kind of introvert, and you think, well, I can just outsource some salespeople. I don't think that's the way it works.
Yeah.
Well, it's making me realize that, the initial transaction is the CEO or one of the senior people or the senior salesperson making the sale based on what a customer needs. But it's also the delivery of that product over time through a human interaction interface that is critical to maybe the next sale or the repeat business is that initial sale. So
again, that the human quality of that. I mean, again, in the world that I know very well, the sort of big IT services companies, Cognizant, Accenture, these sorts of organizations, Accenture is $65 billion of revenue, annual revenue. If you imagine that that's an automated sales process, it's absolutely not. It's senior people, rainmakers, and then bag carrying kind of mid-level people walking the halls, virtually or IRL, and talking to people and having a relationship with people and saying, "Hi, how you doing? Or what are you working on? And what's happening? Or what's the problem?" It's that nature, that human layer. That to me is the crucial distinguishing factor in so many businesses, solutions businesses, complex systems integration businesses, all sorts of businesses. And again, technology will help, and technology does help, and technology will increasingly help with elements of that. But this human interface, again, I think we've perhaps, in all of this excitement around technology in the last few years, forgotten how important that is.
With one last question, then I'll give my peers an opportunity to ask their final question before we round third, head home, let's get practical. With AI, the obvious answer is, well, every industry is ripe for disruption because of AI. But are there some that are riper than others based on like what you are seeing? Are there some that are potentially more at risk of disruptions that are either near or mid or long term that you've seen?
Yeah, no, it's a good question, Patrick. I think it's not the propensity of a particular vertical market in a way that you would say, well, this vertical market is really effed up, more effed up than this vertical market, and this vertical market could really use it more than this vertical market. It's about the appetite, which is manifest in the budget, to spend money on risky software, risky solutions. Because again, don't let anybody fool you at the moment that AI, machine learning, whatever you want to call it, is not full of risk. It absolutely is. Every day there are incredible things happening. People we're filming this on in the middle of March, and yesterday there was this incredible thing called Figure 01. Maybe people have heard of it and seen it. It's a physical robot with OpenAI, GPT integrated into it. Most amazing, mind-blowing thing that I've seen for a while. Because again, it's kind of what we've seen on science fiction movies for a million years, but it's real. It's in the real world. So amazing things are happening, but there's incredible risk still in a lot of these technologies. And again, as I said earlier on, if you're a buyer, if you're a CEO, CIO, and you're making a career-defining bet by buying a solution software of this nature, you've got to get this right. And there's still lots of unknowns, still lots of downside concerns around things like this. The whole Gemini thing recently that people have seen with the software, thinking that the founding fathers of America were African Americans. Did you see that in the media recently? So that, again, lots of examples of sort of risk within this. So it's really the propensity to accept risk and to deploy budget to that. And so it's not the issues, it's the attitude towards the issues within these different vertical markets. And if you look historically at the way this has played out, and I don't think there's any particular reason why this won't play out quite the same way again, because this speaks to propensity to accept risk more than how effed up the vertical market is. It's going to be financial services, insurance, and retail that pursue this more aggressively than anyone else for some time. And you already see this, that the financial services organizations, the big banks, retail banks, the wholesale banks are moving into these areas very, very quickly. And retail is beginning to invest in this quite heavily as well. I've used this phrase for a few years. I can't remember whether I've used it before, Patrick, on your podcast, but there's a lovely phrase that, the future of work, the formula for the future of work, if you like, is X plus AI. X being whatever it is you do, add AI to it, and you then have the potential to take it to the next performance threshold. I think that's a simple but elegant way to encapsulate the fact that this technology is going to find its way into every workflow, every process, every system, every piece of technology, every vertical market, every aspect of our lives in the next, few years. And if I'm a CEO, a CIO, if I'm happy or frustrated, I'm thinking, how do I deploy this into the critical parts of my workflow, the differentiating critical parts of my workflow? And if you're not thinking that, then that's a tricky point of view, tricky sort of perspective to argue in front of your peers, in front of your executive leadership team, in front of your board, in front of your investors. And that's why you see in the public record, every earnings call is really now about how we're using this, how we're deploying this, case studies around it, and the market is rewarding people that are doing that. And risk notwithstanding, I think that continues to be the reality for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, good.
So if we're doing that on the one hand, and we're focusing on the human interface on the other, it gets to be quite a wide spectrum.
It's that thing, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And I'm curious if, as the more millennials, Gen Zs are in the workforce and they've grown up with, this computer in their hand, how much of the human interface has just not been learned by those generations.
Yeah.
I certainly have I think a young person living at home who doesn't know how to pick up the telephone or has had to learn how to pick up the telephone.
I think that's exactly right. I think, again, perhaps you, perhaps our listener are looking at this issue from one age of the age spectrum, but somebody might be listening who's 25 or 28 or 30, I don't know, or 35, looking at it from a different end of the age spectrum. And to them, this isn't, to us, this is kind of old news. To them, it might be completely, wow, I'd never thought of that before. I'd never really considered that because, as you say, Patsy, I'm just, I'm online the whole time. Everything is online. I do everything through this and hasn't really considered those things. So that could very well be the case. For those people, this might be a net new insight. Wow, that could be something we could focus on rather than just being this kind of single issue politician just focused on one piece of a bigger puzzle. No, that's a great point, a great observation. But you're right. Yes, doing all of these things that we're talking about, investing in people, investing in technology, absolutely non-trivial, not easy. That's why your listeners and watchers are paid the big bucks. Because if it was easy, I remember when I was a junior boy in PwC a million years ago, after pulling an all-nighter to work on some customer's problem and client's problem, I said to my partner, "Gee, this is so tough." And he said, "Well, of course it's tough. If it wasn't tough, they'd employ hairdressers."
There's a quote for you.
To a millennial nowadays, they get all offended and take it to HR. But no, of course it's difficult. And but again, that's why in a very online, real time financial environment that we live in, why the market reacts, the stock market reacts so quickly and rewards companies that get it right. The Apples, obviously the Nvidias at the moment, the rewards to the winners are greater than ever, and the penalties to the losers are more severe than ever before. And again, that's, for good or bad, some people's taste, some people's distaste, but that's the reality of the world we live in. So it is important to be able to walk and chew the gum at the same time, to pack your head, rub your tummy at the same time, to realize that humans are more important than ever and technology is more important than ever. And we've got to do both. We can't just, it's not a binary choice. It's not one or the other.
And we've got to have both quickly at hand. I mean, you're talking about how the stock market responds. It's kind of amazing. Go to sleep one night with one news and then wake up the next morning and the world's completely changed. And it's just business as usual. So,
and that's right. And again, that speaks to the risk issue, because again, it's the appetite for risk. One of the consequences, and perhaps one of the sort of unintended consequences of this pace of change, evolutionary change, technology-driven evolutionary change at the moment, is that some businesses, I would say probably a lot of businesses, more than is commonly thought of, and certainly what want to talk about on the public record, are sort of frozen because of the risk. They're so freaked out by everything. They're frozen. They don't know what to do. It's like this, fight or flight symptom in the face of a threat. People sort of talk, well, it's not just fight or flight. It's freeze or flop. As well. And I think a lot of businesses are in a freeze and flop kind of moment at the moment. They don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And the risk of getting it wrong and being penalized if you're a publicly traded company is so great that you kind of, oh my God, I don't know what to do. And again, very understandable, very human reaction, but is a movie that's not going to end well.
I was going to say, if your choice is freeze or do the wrong thing, which is the better option?
Yeah. I guess that's exactly right.
Yeah.
So I don't want to open up a new can of worms necessarily, but I do have one other question. It seems to me that the other battle that we really haven't talked too much about is having CEOs and companies looking for and merging the challenge between being profitable and having a positive impact on the green planet issues, the ability to even produce enough chips to make all this happen.
Yeah,
and having a positive, sustainable impact.
Yep,
while we're profiting. And it seems to run through, especially in the social implications we've been talking about with younger people who are going to inherit and who may want or have young children. They're thinking further ahead.
Yep.
So is it fair to say that CEOs also, besides the social contract, need to look at the social contract around how they do business and the impact that it's having on the planet or even their local communities that they operate in?
It's a great can of worms. No, because I think, again, the winds are changing. The debate is changing. I don't know whether you guys sense this or folks listening to this, watching this, sense this. I sense this at the moment that I remember writing a piece probably in 2018, 2019, suggesting that the green, agenda, as however you want to sort of define that, which had sort of been bubbling up in the business world for a number of years, was really sort of becoming prime time, main stage. I was at the World Economic Forum in Davos, and Greta Thunberg was on the main stage, and that was the first time this sort of activist fringe voice was really in the middle of the socio-economic business debate, the forum, the sort of conversation there. And I wrote a piece saying, Greta meet Gordon Gecko. Remember, meet Greta meet Gordon meet Greta, you're going to get on fine. And this idea that that the imperative to greenify the world was going to make a lot of green for Gordon Gecko, and that was how it was going to play out. And that seemed to be the way the wind was blowing from 2019, 2020, and then COVID comes along and has sort of derailed it, I think. And quantitative easing has ended, and that seems to have derailed it. And fast forward to today, you see a lot of the big businesses and a lot of the leaders who invited Greta. She's I'm sort of the metaphor here, not just her personally, the symbol of the people that wanted to do what Greta is talking about. The people who were opening those doors, Larry Fink, have started to back away from that. And that is being de-emphasized, I would say, currently. And again, depending on where you sit sort of on the socio-political spectrum and or where you sit on the cynical spectrum, skeptical spectrum, is either a surprise or not. So it's either, well, that's the way of the world, and these guys were only interested in it because they thought it was a great way to make a lot of money, and they weren't really too interested in the real fundamental ethical issues underpinning it. It's just, this is a new business opportunity. But I do sense that is being de-emphasized because blowback of realization that the investment models underpinning this and then the return on that investment models were a little bit optimistic. Certainly in the UK, where I'm from originally, the net zero debate is very, very hot politically, and all the media and the right and centre media are all banging the drum that this transition into a kind of non-traditional power model is just not going to happen, can't happen, isn't affordable. Certainly you see this playing out in Germany. And I think here in the States, as I say, some of the business leaders who are influencing politicians have backed away from this a little bit. And so, yeah, it's an interesting one, Leb. I mean, again, this is existentially, obviously, one of the biggest challenges. The next generation, will have, it'll impact us a little bit, but we'll probably go into a happy hunting ground before it really impacts the next generation very materially. My perspective, just based on again my own personality and my own sort of observations of 61 years on planet Earth, is that humans can be good at fixing problems when the problems happened, but not so good at fixing problems before they happen. If you follow me. So I think we might get to some sort of crisis moment, and then everybody throws everything at solving the crisis reactively, rather than being able to generate the political will, the social will, the economic will to proactively prevent the problem happening. That's just a personal opinion of mine.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Ben.
Yep.
It's good. All right, I'm looking at my colleagues. Any other questions, or Ben, anything we hadn't gotten to yet that you're like, no, I came here to talk about this?
No, it's been great chatting with you guys again, and I hope that was interesting. And we went down a lot of highways and byways, but it was great fun.
Good. Patsy or Leb, any final questions before we get practical?
I don't.
Okay. All right. Well, listener, this is the part of every show where we give you practical things, concepts, ideas, sometimes very practical steps you can take in the business starting today, tomorrow to make progress, to grow the business, grow your leadership, grow the organization. So Ben, would you like to go first? When you think 2 or 3 things that a leader or listener, based on our conversation today or we didn't get to, what might you recommend that a CEO be thinking about doing or paying attention to?
Yeah, I think there's a pretty sounds a bit sort of simplistic, Patrick, but a very, very simple thing any CEO of any business should be doing at the moment. And perhaps I'm sure many have, but again, the future is here. It's just unevenly distributed. Probably not everybody has done this, but is either physically take a trip to the Mission District in San Francisco and go and knock on the door of OpenAI and meet with the guys at OpenAI. Or if you can't physically get there, virtually do that. Go and check out this technology and really get under the hood of it. Even if you're not a technologist, you need to understand this. And my sense, talking to a lot of people, is that people don't understand this. They don't really understand this technology in that much detail. And you might say, well, I'm a finance guy, or I'm an HR person, or I'm a salesperson. I'm not a technologist. Why should I do that? But it's just the simple reality of this world in 2024 that this technology, again, I was quite sort of I knocked it a few times in some of the things I said. This is going to be the crucial, most impactful differentiator of success or failure in, certainly in the rest of my working life, and probably in the rest of anybody who's listening to this now, their working life. And if you are a CEO, you're a senior leader in a business, you need to grapple with this. You need to get your head around it. And you may come away, well, I don't really understand how this is working, but I can see the implications of this in my staffing model, in my product development model, in my competitive landscape. Whatever it is, it's going to be impactful. And so I'd go and talk to those people. Or go to Seattle, go and talk to Microsoft. Obviously, you have this big relationship with OpenAI. This is incredible. This is historical. Our kids, our grandkids, when they learn history, if they open a book or if it's a chip implanted into their brain in the future, this is the history that they'll be learning. And if you're, sitting around and, you were there, this was happening in your lifetime, and you were in the hot seat of your business, but you were just not really paying attention to it. I think that's a dereliction of duty, frankly.
A very practical step. I like that. Thank you. It's good. Leb or Patsy, you want to go?
Go ahead, Leb.
Okay. There's many, Ben. I've got like 5 pages of notes here. Invest in training the workforce on social behavior. That is one of them. Leaders need to understand their true competitive differentiation. The relationship and psychology of working has changed over the last 4 years. Mm-hmm. Leaders need to recognize, adjust, and I added, and go talk to their people. So I have a whole lot more, but I'll pass it to Patsy.
You want to go, Patsy?
Sure. I thought it was eye-opening, heartbreaking to hear social contract is breaking down. We're trying more and more to use AI and machine learning, and the human experience is being forgotten. That was one. I like you, Lem, have pages. I thought that, the two areas you identified where business really should be focusing, which is the customer service, or two areas where the human experience is really critical, which is customer service and sales. That human experience that the customer, whether it's the external customer or the internal customer, is wanting, people are wanting a real and a good experience. Those are two I would add.
Awesome. I'm going to add, let's see. I thought this was really, the way you explained it, Ben, was simple. That the formula for the future of work is X plus AI, with X being what you do for a living. So how can AI enhance your X? It's really how the CEO should be thinking about it. I like this too. You said this a couple of times. Pay attention to the inefficiency of efficiency. That it is possible to become so efficient that you inadvertently create a crappy experience for the customer. And I think we can speak as people who consult with organizations on, among other things, organization culture. Sometimes you can create efficiency that creates a crappy experience for your own people as well, which I then think, in turn, creates a crappy experience for the customer. It's all tied together. And then I like this. It's just a warning. Again, maybe it piggybacks on what you were saying, Ben, that it's, if you're not trying to figure this out, as perhaps a dereliction of duty. I wrote down this note. I take this seriously. That you said the rewards for the winners are greater than ever before, but conversely, the risk to the losers is greater than ever before. And let that just, as if a CEO doesn't have enough keeping them awake at night. But maybe this goes back to the freezing part, right? Don't lay awake frozen. Do something, right?
Yeah.
Learn it. Get on a plane. Go to San Francisco. Go to Seattle. I think that's all great advice. Let Patsy, or Ben, what would you add? We can go around again.
No, that's terrific. I thought you guys were just checking your lottery numbers. I didn't realize you were taking notes and stuff.
Oh yeah, we take this stuff seriously. We're nothing if not serious.
I do have one to add that kind of piggybacks on the one you just said, Patrick, which is, as a CEO or a senior leader, you're also a human being. So, be aware of your own reaction to what's going on. Are you freezing? Are you jumping? Are you, because it's, you're the human being in the driver's seat.
Yeah, that's great. I have one related to that, which is embracing change as a business necessity for all leaders in every industry.
Yeah.
However you find your way to embrace it. And then the last one's just kind of fun. I love it. I might turn this into a bumper sticker. Sticks and carrots doesn't work well in 2024.
That's the one I was going to add. So I'm glad you got it.
Me too. I didn't know quite how to. Yeah.
I think that's a further refinement of the point you just made. That change, right? You have to be willing to look at today's workforce, motivating today's worker differently than perhaps how you have for the first 20, 30, 40 years of your career. You nailed it. Ben, I know you have. Okay, so you have a number of books. I want to make sure that let's name these. So for our listener, you can find any or all of these out on Amazon, I'm sure. What to do when machines do everything. Code Halos: How the Digital Lives of People, Things, and Organizations Are Changing the Rules of Business. Monster: Taming the Machines That Rule Our Lives, Jobs, and Future. And then a new one in 2023, Certain Uncertainty: Leading with Agility and Resilience in an Unpredictable World. So those are all books that you can pick up. You can hear more from Ben. Ben is also a keynote speaker on the future of work, on the IT. So Ben, if someone is interested in hiring you to speak or to hiring you to consult for their organization on any or all of these issues, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Yeah, and I think, Patrick, so just benpring.com. People will find me there. I'm quite visible on social media and online. So, yeah, I'd love to come in and speak at events, maybe people are hiring, internal, external, with the customers or whatever. And, certainly talk in a more private context about particular issues that an organization might be facing at the moment, a particular opportunity they're pursuing, a competitive issue they may be facing. Yeah, very happy to come in and see if I can help with those sorts of things. And anything we've talked about and a lot of other things as well. I'm very happy to engage with folks.
And will they be able to send their customer service folks to the Ben Pring finishing school? Is that coming?
Set up a little Swiss finishing school here in Massachusetts. Yeah, that's a good idea. I hadn't thought of that, Patrick. I like that. I'll pick you up on that.
I want 1% of all revenue.
You have a little royalty payment on that one. Yeah, you go.
Excellent. Ben, thank you so much for joining us, not once, not twice, but for a third time on the Frustrated CEO podcast. We are always smarter after you've left. So much for this being smarter. We're always smarter after you've left. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. It's great to see you.
Great talking to you all. Thanks very much, guys.
Thanks very much.
Patsy, thank you both. We'll see you next time. Listener, you can find this episode, Let's Get Practical, on our website at thefrustratedceo.com. As well as if you have only been joining us through Spotify or through the podcast libraries, maybe you didn't know, you can actually watch all of our episodes now on our YouTube channel. So just go out to YouTube and search for The Frustrated CEO. You'll find us there, and you can connect with all four of us on LinkedIn. Look up Ben Pring, Lev Tannenbaum, Patsy Feeman, and myself. We'd love to connect with you. And I guess that's it. Anything else for the good of the cause? We're good.
We're good.
All right, listener, we'll see you again next time on the Frustrated CEO podcast.